Hello and welcome to this episode of Focus On. I'm Zanella Morrison. The digital payment landscape in Sub-Saharan Africa is going through a remarkable transformation, driving developments that promise greater financial inclusion, economic empowerment, and overall growth across the region. Joining me for more on advancing digital payment growth across the region is Andrew Torre, Regional President for Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Visa. So the conversation really has to go straight into just how evolved the sector already is. Until you see the kinds of talented individuals who are doing the work in the space, you actually don't know how mature it is. What has been for you a way to summarize exactly who is playing in the digital payment arena?
It's incredible. We've been on the continent for more than 3 decades, but if you look at what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years, it's more than this was happened in the prior 25 years. Just absolutely incredible. Growth across the board. You've got the traditional banking clients, you've got mobile money, you've got fintechs coming in, supporting consumers, supporting sellers. So we've seen lots of growth in the business, a lot of dynamism, and really huge expansions to support small sellers get on the network, which is great.
What I'm finding very interesting is that as you go along, you're collecting a lot of data and you're doing research. Why are you doing that? Why is it important for you to not only be supporting, enabling, and uplifting, but you've got this deep research piece that plugs into it?
Yeah, it really helps us inform our decisions. Payments is inherently local, so we want to understand what's happening in each and every market. Customs are different, so we want to be able to help support our clients, support their clients, whether they're consumers or whether they're sellers. So the piece of research you're talking about is a visa acceptance study where we did face-to-face on the ground with over 1,000 small businesses that are accepting payments or going to be accepting payments to understand what their needs are. And it was across a broad cross-section of African countries. So Ethiopia, Tanzania, Kenya, I'm going to get this right, South Africa and Nigeria. So those 5 markets. And it's really important for us. It's important for governments. If you think about small businesses being the backbone of economies, most of the hiring, most of the talent, and most of the entrepreneurism in the continent is in small businesses. So it's really important for us to understand them and help ourselves and our clients really focus on enabling them.
And one of the core themes across the continent, especially the countries that you've mentioned, if not all of them, is banking the unbanked, and getting and moving people into banking system. Why is this important? I mean, we talk about the word inclusion, but we need to unpack what does that actually mean for not only the individuals, but for each of those economies.
Absolutely. So when you get small businesses that are more efficient and prosperous, they uplift communities. Digitizing them helps economies grow at far different pace. And if I just go into a teeny bit of what the study says, I'll voice some of what we've heard from these small businesses themselves.
I mean, let's go straight into it. Let's go straight into it because I think the interest for me is not only what is the burning platform for Visa to do so much of this, with such I would say Dubai level of passion, to do it, and to literally be part of the landscape. What is driving that? And when you hear from the consumer themselves, how has their experience changed from the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much dynamism in all of these economies. And if you listen to what these small businesses have told us, I'll tell you 2 things. One, I'll tell you the positives of what they've said, and then you'll probably want to hear what some of the barriers are, because we love to hear the good things, and then we want to hear what we need to help the ecosystem fix. So on the good side, one, we've seen from ourselves, our own data, that we've had, if we looked back 4 or 5 years ago, we've had a couple 100,000 sellers in Africa, which is not a large acceptance footprint. That has increased to over 7 million, at the end of 2024. So a rapid shift of small businesses, small sellers getting onto our network and other networks. And so that's really, really important. And when you ask them why, one is they've said, we see the benefits. We see more footfall, whether that's physical footfall into a store or digital footfall, and we see more revenue. We've also seen, if we talked about that huge spike in the number of sellers on our network, we've seen in markets, certainly in Ethiopia and Tanzania, a lot of those sellers that have come on are very recent in the last 2 years. We've seen that they're very, very interested in value-added services. So beyond the payments, how can you help me grow my business, right? And so things naturally come to mind. Loyalty. So you've had a customer come in once. How do you get them to come back? How do you better understand their needs? So there's data and other things we can provide. How do we make their businesses more efficient? How do we look at the payment data and help them understand what's selling well, what to stock more to get through a busy weekend? So there's lots of different things they're looking for. And then obviously they continue to invest in new payments technology.
But what you talk about, and I love that you talk about it as in, you own it, but you're partnering a lot with people in those countries, right?
Absolutely.
Because I'm very sure that you're not there at the forefront, you're at the back. And have you found that there's more than enough talent on the ground doing the kind of work that you either plug them in or they plug you in so that you can deliver the services to somebody in a rural environment right down to the city center?
Absolutely. We, as you know, we work in an ecosystem, right? If your network is only as good as those folks you connect to. So, and we work with everyone. We work with governments. Governments think deeply about this. They want to make sure these small businesses thrive. Our traditional financial institutions, fintechs that are out there, that are really understand how to hit that last mile and digitally onboard lots of these small sellers. So absolutely, there's lots of talent. There's venture capital flowing in, and that tends to beget talent. So it's mutually reinforcing when you see the entrepreneurs and the coders and the folks that are involved in technology in the continent. It is growing at a massive rate, which is wonderful. And
when you talk about these folks, and you referred to them a little bit earlier on, you said that growth in the last 5 years is more than the growth in the last 20 years. So these folks are very mature then in terms of their capability to get into fintech solutions. Mm-hmm. And is it easy enough? Are they plugging into the banks? Are they also networking the ecosystem to bring it to you in packages?
They absolutely are. So there's the financial institutions, and they still generally, and they still plug into those financial institutions, but it's that last mile problem. So if you think about, they go out and they shop where we shop, and they see the challenges associated with a small seller, right? So how do I digitally onboard them? They're not going to necessarily want to walk into a bank branch. So how do I digitally onboard them? How do I make it easy as signing up for WhatsApp, right? So there's that. Then how do I make it easy that I don't need to give them a clunky, costly piece of equipment to be able to do payments, but everyone has a mobile phone or a device in their pocket. How do I make that the focal point for them to be able to accept payments and then even start making payments? So they see these things and they're very quick to be able to enable them as well. And then again, to provide some of these value-added services to help them run their business. So.
And the adoption of cashless, it is a big part of the journey that's coming up. And is the continent-wide, all the regions you've mentioned, is it a swift move for people to literally be quite happy to do cashless and not be using cash?
It is. It's definitely, if you look at payments growth across Sub-Saharan Africa has been growing over the last 4 years at a compound annual growth rate of 27%. So our payments. So it's fast. Cash is starting to shrink now for the first time we're seeing. So you see that. I would say there are still some of the inhibitors that are out there that the small merchant told us about as well. They said, I need better digital infrastructure. They want more financial literacy and education. They want to understand, how they can use payment tools to be able to power their businesses. And then, there's been a huge growth in e-commerce. E-commerce has more than tripled over the last couple of years. So if you're a small micro seller, you want to be able to get on board really easily to be able to sell your goods, not just to the people that are within walking distance of your store, but to people around the globe. We've got billions and billions of Visa consumers that want to be able to buy. So partners like Little Fish here in South Africa are creating digital storefronts for these small sellers to be able to very quickly get on and take their physical goods and put them online.
It's completely changing the world as we know it. I mean, you've been to South Africa so many times. You've seen the massive malls, that we have. Probably have more malls than most places. But a lot of these structures leave out the SMEs, mm-hmm. right? But also financial institutions leave out the SMEs. How far do you go in providing SMEs with the support they need for credit rating, for reports on their customers, reports on revenue?
Yeah, so we work through our financial institution partners and the fintechs, and I would say, one of the things we're starting to see now, which a lot of the SMEs are seeing themselves, once you start accepting payments digitally and start making payments digitally, you see these flows, and then financial institutions or fintechs that support them can start giving them credit when they need it. They'll know, right? They say, oh, there's been a ton of sales in. You probably need credit over the weekend to be able to buy some supplies. So it starts to become embedded and natural. So there really is an ecosystem with the technology and the data they have available to be able to make really good decisions to support small and micro businesses.
And I think for me, the last couple of days, I knew we were going to have a conversation, and I thought to myself, what is, besides the fact that it's good business, what burns Visa so much to be because you're taking on the opportunity, but you're also taking on the challenge with a lot of energy and positivity to what is possible. What is the juice behind the ambition of the work that you're doing?
So as an organization, we're deeply focused on financial inclusion. Our very first products around the world were financial inclusion products, giving consumers access to credit when they need it, to their funds available, and small and micro businesses. They're incredibly important. They haven't, traditionally had all of the tools that some of the larger sellers out there have had, and now they do. And it's really important for us to be able to make economies grow and prosper by uplifting everyone everywhere. And that's all consumers and all sellers. So we're busy working with partners that are deeply passionate about it like we are.
And I'm worried that you're going to repeat yourself, but a lot of people, with my question, a lot of people venture into the continent, and high margin of failure, for those working in the continent. You feel yourself to be doing it easier or simpler, or it's really working, and why would it work so well for you to just be able to just navigate this complex continent?
Yeah, so I'll repeat the first part of what I said at the start. We've been here for 30 years. We believe in a long-term relationship, so we come, we stay, we work within the ecosystem. So we work with governments, financial institutions, and partners, and that's what makes us successful. We don't do it alone. We do it together with partners that have the same aspirations and the same goals.
And I think that's something that some industries are learning, and maybe have not learned, but learning much later, that partnership is probably key to making an impact in solving the continent's problems. And Absolutely. One of those big ones is inclusion. Thank you so much. That's it. As we wrap up this episode of Focus On, that was Andrew Torre, Regional President for Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa from Visa. He joined me today in studio to explore this growth and adoption of digital payments in Sub-Saharan Africa. From me, Zanella Morrison, it's been good to be with you. Take care.